I'm going to talk about some YouTube drama. It's YouTube drama, yes, but it actually reveals a very important lesson that I want you to learn. This is actually a very important post that I'm sticking up. I want you to pay attention to it, because even though we're going to be talking about a trivial incident, it is very revealing. James Joyce was always looking for epiphanies. I don't have that much respect for James Joyce as a writer, but the notion of finding key moments that reveal truths, I think that's a wise notion to hold. And a little bit of YouTube drama that happened yesterday was very much an epiphany, a moment of revelation, a showing forth, if you will. So I'm going to talk about it. It revolves around this YouTuber called Cowardice. Now, Cowardice is I think he's late 20s, German. He speaks English. I believe he lives in Germany or Austria. I don't really know. I don't really care. But the point of Cowardice is that he's part of the skeptic community, and he was part of that stream a few weeks ago that took down Rage After Storm. Now, Rage After Storm has completely imploded, so it's not an issue of her. It's Cowardice. I'm going to be discussing him because it's important to look at him carefully to understand him and understand the concept of ruthlessness. Okay, so in the stream that he had with the Warski brothers, it devolved to this Cowardice person to essentially intellectually take out Rage After Storm. Now, Cowardice comes across as this like young continental intellectual. You know, he has this lazy drawl with a British accent. You know, on his live streams he's like smoking a cigarette in very colorful lighting. I do that sometimes myself, so I shouldn't, you know, point that out as a negative. But you know, Cowardice comes across as somebody very smart, very educated, and intellectual. Yeah. Now, when I first heard the stream, I actually didn't pay that much attention to Cowardice because I don't really care for him. I never really cared for him. When I got into this area of YouTube, of the YouTube community, if you will, smirk, I didn't really care for his content because I didn't really care for his voice. And the reason I didn't care for his voice is that I realized something almost immediately when I listened to him. He's faking his accent. You see, the kind of accent that he uses, or he tries to use rather, is known as RP, received pronunciation. Now, received pronunciation is not a regional accent. In point of fact, it's a social accent, if you will. It's the form of speech that British upper class kids learn in private school, usually boarding school. Now, I know this because, well, my parents lived in England since when they were children, and so I know enough about British culture, and a lot of my friends speak RP, and, you know, some of them, we tease them about it because it's kind of funny. It's a little bit like the mid-Atlantic accent that William F. Buckley used to use. It's artificial, and it denotes social class. Now, Cowardice uses this RP accent, but the thing is, he's faking it. It's not real. He pretends to have it, but I know enough to know that he doesn't speak RP. Just as I know that I speak with an American accent because, of course, I was raised in the United States. I spent enough years there that I have the American accent, but, you know, I can recognize a Southern accent, I can recognize an accent from Texas, I can recognize an accent from Scotland, and I can recognize when somebody is faking a Texas accent. I can recognize when somebody's faking RP, and Cowardice is certainly doing that, and so that's why I never really cared for his content. I thought it was just, you know, what's that all about? The other thing that happened to me was that his content, he would go after SJW nonsense, of course, right? Being, as he is, part of the skeptic community, the anti-SJW crowd. But, you know, he was going after low-hanging fruit, as it were, and really like demolishing the low-hanging fruit a little too aggressively. I mean, putting too much firepower to a relatively trivial incident. And his content was very rarely, if ever, you know, big picture, macro. I mean, he seemed to be a talented guy, but, you know, just focusing on very small bore issues. And then I heard this stream, and I actually paid attention to it after I'd done my post on Rage After Storm. I listened to the stream carefully, and I noticed that Kraut and T didn't go for Rage After Storm's points in the video. He went after the sources for her information, but he didn't really dispute her argument. And so he had this lazy drawl, and everybody in the stream was laughing along with him as he was being oh so sophisticated. But you see, he was being a quote-unquote intellectual for people who aren't very sophisticated, young people who don't know what an intellectual really sounds like, the rigor of a true intellectual. Kraut and T was just going around on the edges, on the fringes of what Rage After Storm posted in her video, and going after the fact that she had quoted the Daily Stormer, which I myself said was stupid. But he went after that point as opposed to her actual arguments. You see? He sounded like an intellectual giving a devastating appraisal of somebody's position, but he actually wasn't. He was just pretending to it. With his pretend received pronunciation accent. Just pretending to be an intellectual. A lazy drawl coming out of his mouth, as if he had seen it all, like pretending that he was living in Weimar Germany or some nonsense like that, and trying to put on this show of intellectuality that for somebody young, somebody perhaps not that sophisticated, might seem very sophisticated, but for somebody who's been around intellectuals, who knows a little bit about the rigor of true intellectuals, it just seemed laughable, and vaguely ridiculous, So I forgot all about it. I mean, who gives a shit? I don't follow the guy. I don't think that his content is interesting. I don't think that he is interesting. I mean, so what? Right? So I forgot about it. I didn't pay attention to the guy until yesterday. Yesterday, I saw this tweet, rather, that Blonde in the Belly of the Beast put up. Blonde, lovely woman, nice woman, yeah. I really enjoy her content, and she seems like a very sensible person. And she put up a tweet that quoted a Kraut and T tweet where Kraut and T had contacted Rage After Storm's employer and advising the employer via tweet if he was aware of Rage After Storm's ideas. Yeah, I'll quote the tweet that Kraut sent. It said, "Kipper Central, you might want to look into the views of one of your contributors, Rage After Storm." I was unaware of this tweet, but I was really surprised. It just seemed, it just seemed like he was trying to break Rage After Storm's rice bowl, right? And Blonde was criticizing him precisely because of that, because Blonde said correctly that we on the anti-SJW side, as it were, constantly critique the SJWs for going after people's rice bowl. We consider it hitting below the belt, as it were. And it is. Because, see, it's all good and fine to critique somebody's views, as Kraut and T had done. He had critiqued Rage After Storm's views in that live stream and pretended to apply an intellectuality that he doesn't possess, and to show off how clever he was and how foolish Rage After Storm was, and that's all good and fine. But going after somebody's employment, that's very, very different. That really is hitting below the belt. Now, this tweet is very interesting for two reasons, and we should talk about it. And it's the point of this video, as a matter of fact. You see, the first thing is that it showed that Kraut and T, it signals that Kraut and T was a ruthless individual. All right? Now, what is ruthlessness? It's important to define exactly what you're talking about. You see, ruthlessness is the ability to set aside your morality and carry out those wrong or even malicious and cruel acts necessary to secure your interests. Now you see, most men, I would venture to say all men, are filled with love and tenderness, all of us. And we express it in different ways. And sometimes we have to protect our heart, protect our love and tenderness, and present to a world a harder shield, a harder face than we actually possess. But we, all of us, want to do good. We all want to do things lovingly and tenderly. And it's a natural and good impulse. But some of us, some people, some men, have the ability to set aside that desire to be a good person, that desire to live a moral life. We have the ability to set aside that and carry out acts of cruelty that are necessary to protect our interests. In point of fact, there are very few people who can do this. A lot of guys fake it. A lot of guys say, oh yeah, I'm real tough, A truly ruthless man is not very common, and you learn to fear him, and you should, because a truly ruthless man, it's not that he's going to just attack you for no reason. It's like meeting like one of these mixed martial arts fighters, the guys who go into some caged ring and beat each other silly. You meet him in real life, and of course he's very dangerous, but of course he's not going to hit you for no reason. Yeah, I mean, you'd have to do a lot before he starts beating you up. Okay, the same with a truly ruthless man. He's not going to be, inflicting evil deeds on you for no reason. I mean, you really have to go out and provoke him. You really have to go out and try to hurt him some way. Kraut, with this tweet, he was basically doing a fairly ruthless act, trying to break Rage After Storm's rice bowl, make sure that her employer dropped her. It later turned out, parenthetically, that this employer didn't really pay her, but they did drop her. But they didn't pay her, so insofar as money, insofar as her rice bowl, it doesn't really matter. But see, Kraut didn't know that when he sent this tweet. He was trying to get her fired, trying to get her to lose her income. Blonde was right to call him out on it, and Kraut had a little hissy fit. But it signaled one thing. I mean, sending a tweet like that is kind of weird if you think about it. Because you see, if you send a tweet to somebody's employer to get them fired, well, it's a hit or miss thing whether they're going to read that tweet. I mean, lots of people tweet to me and I don't see them. Oh, for various reasons, because at that time I'm just not on, and later on, the stream of tweets moves on. Or, sometimes the Twitter algorithm doesn't show it to me. I don't know why. It doesn't really matter. The point is, see, a tweet is sort of like a hit or miss way of communicating with somebody. I mean, if we're looking for like an analogy or a metaphor, it would be like taking a dart and throwing it at a dartboard that's 30 feet away. I mean, yeah, you might hit it, you might not. And the likelihood that you won't, because it's pretty far. 30 feet is 30 feet, right? I mean, hell, I can't hit a dartboard at 10 feet, right? So, or less, at 5. But, so sending a tweet is not a foolproof way to communicate to somebody if you really, really want to get somebody fired. I mean, an email would be much better now, wouldn't it? So, on the one hand, he's sending this tweet to get her fired. So, he wants her fired. But on the other hand, see, it's a tweet, so it's public, so everybody can see it. Everybody can see the tweet. What does that mean? He wants everybody to know that he is ruthless enough to try to get somebody fired. He wants people to think that he is that ruthless. That's what it means. That's the only reason why he would have tweeted something. Because a tweet, ultimately, is public communication. He is at once trying to get Rage After Storm fired, but the real issue is to convince people that he has the ruthlessness to do such a thing. See? Now, here comes the kicker. You see, when a man shows himself ruthless enough to break somebody's rice bowl, that's something. It's somebody you respect. Like I said, it's like an MMA fighter. You are wary around him. and other men learn to recognize a truly ruthless man. I mean, you know, there are lots of ruthless men that you'll meet in your life, and you have to be careful with them, yeah? Because they will fuck your shit up badly. And there are a lot of people who pose, all right? The ones who are really dangerous, you kind of know. There's something about them that you're like, him. He'd fuck me up. He'd fuck me up good. Because like I said, it is the ability to take your moral structure and take your moral beliefs and take the kindness and tenderness and love in your heart and set it aside and then unleash cruelty on someone in order to protect or advance your interests. That's a truly rare thing, and such men are truly dangerous, and we men, we all recognize it. So perhaps we are not able to articulate it, but we recognize it. Crown T is trying to do that. He puts out this tweet trying to break Rage After Storm's rice bowl, but the real reason he's doing is to signal to everyone. It's a virtue signal. He's virtue signaling to everybody that he is such a man. He is a dangerous man. Yeah. Well, then yesterday, he put out another tweet. And this is the tweet that made me despise him. This is the tweet that I thought to myself, this Kraut and T is not a man. This man, this thing, this person is a coward. And I will read you this tweet. I'm quoting here. I find it fucking hilarious that some of you compare a tweet I made to the letter-writing campaign Thunderfoot had to endure. This was a letter-writing campaign that Thunderfoot, the noted vlogger, had to endure because somebody tried to get him fired from his job. And the best about all of this, question mark, wait for it, ellipses point, wait for it, ellipses point, I actually contacted her employer who told me in person that I am in absolutely no way responsible for her being fired and making it absolutely clear that it was their decision. So we have two tweets. On one hand, he tries to break Rage After Storm's rice bowl, get her fired, which is very, very serious. And as Blonde in the Belly of the Beast noted, this is what SJWs do when they try to silence people. It's very dangerous and very cruel. And needlessly cruel, because Kraut's interests would not be advanced by doing such a thing. And he tweeted it so that everybody would see that he was ruthless enough to do such a thing. But then yesterday, when he got criticized for this original tweet of him trying to break Rage After Storm's rice bowl, what does he do? He backtracks. He backtracks and he calls Rage After Storm's former employer, who didn't pay her, it was apparently a volunteer position, calls them up to get them to tell him that he had nothing to do with her being fired. Kraut and T is a coward. He is a coward who pretended to be ruthless, just as he pretends everything in his life. He pretends to be an intellectual. He pretends to be of a higher social class than he is. He pretends to be educated. He pretends to be a big brain, and he pretends to be a ruthless individual who should be reckoned with. But he is none of these things. He's just a pretender. You have to be careful with pretenders, okay? Because pretenders like this individual will often do very, very reckless and irrational things in order to safeguard their ego. You see, he unilaterally decided to break Rage After Storm's rice bowl for no reason, just because he felt like it, just because he wanted to show other people that he was ruthless. But when other people criticized him, he backed off and he went like a little bootlicking dog to the employer, to Rage After Storm's employer, looking for, essentially, an excuse to say, oh no, you were totally innocent, even though his intent was clear. His intent was to have her fired, to break her rice bowl. His intent was to show everybody what a ruthless man he was. But then when he was criticized for it, he did not act like a truly ruthless man, because a truly ruthless man would not give a shit about what other people thought of his actions. He would simply carry them out, because that's what you do. That is the whole point of being ruthless. It is to protect your interests. It's not, you're not an MMA fighter looking to start a fight with some random person. No. See, you exercise ruthlessness for a reason that directly affects you. This individual, he tried to break Rage After Storm's rice bowl just so that he could show off to everybody else. And then, like a coward that he is, like an individual of no moral substance, of no balls, I mean, just a castrated gelding as far as I'm concerned, he went yipping like a little castrated dog to Rage After Storm's former employer, and getting them to assure him that, no, 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 you had nothing to do with her firing. That's not ruthlessness. Now, I'm telling you all this because a lot of times it's hard to explain what a quality is, but it's easy to show what the lack of that quality is. That's why I'm bringing up Kraut & Tea. That's why I'm calling this vlog post what I'm calling it. Yeah. I'm not trying to go after Kraut & Tea, who I think is a nobody, a nothing, a flea. I'm trying to show you, by dissecting his actions, how you should not behave. Because the way he behaved, well, he behaved like a coward. A man of no consequence. In point of fact, he's not even a man.